All right. We are live on YouTube land. Anybody who's out there watching, can you guys, we're going to go through real quick and give a mic check. Need you guys to let us know if it sounds okay. This is Big D, mic check number 1. Mr. Vega, give me mic check number 2.
Mic check 1 2 3. Mic check 1 2 3.
All right, Sam, you're up. Mic check.
Boom! How's it going, YouTube?
There you go. It all sounds good
Yes.
to me. Let's see.
Sounds
Early today. Give us some. Sounds good. Okay, that's all we
Yeah.
need. Focus dark audio. When he says or she says it sounds good, then we're good to go. So Sam, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna share my screen here, and I'm gonna start the official part here, so we
sounds
can.
good to me, my man.
And we'll get started. Let me share screen 2.
What? That's a good start.
Now, yeah, I have to apologize for my horrible graphic because we haven't invested any money in that yet. So anyway,
You're the intro man today, D.
yeah, I'm the intro today. You
I
kind of
remember
bombed.
because I blew it
You
last
kind of
week.
bombed the last one. I won't gonna say anything, but you did kind of bomb the last one. But hey, it's okay. Alrighty, YouTube land. We're getting ready to start here. Let's, Sam, are you ready? We'll give a 5 countdown.
Yep, all good to go, my man.
Okay, cool. All right, here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2. 12 Volt Talk, episode 21. We have Sam from Barevids here tonight.
How's it
This
going,
is Big D.
guys?
Hey, Sam. This is Big D Wiz, youtube.com/Big D Wiz. Here as always with my co-host, Mr. Hi-Fi Vega. How's it going tonight, Rob?
Going great, man. High Five Vega here. YouTube.com/High Five Vega. And I didn't botch the intro because I didn't do it.
Ah, he let me botch it because I kind of botched it. But tonight we have a very special guest all the way across the pond, Mr. Sam from Barevids. How's it going, Sam?
Good evening, guys. Very nice to be with you today. Very nice to be with you this evening.
Thank you for joining us at this late hour. I know for you this is probably like morning.
Nah, this is lunchtime for me.
And
You know
you
me,
guys,
man. Streaming into the late of the night.
yeah, you guys who watch Sam on YouTube know that he is quite a night owl, and obviously a lot of his viewership comes from the United States, so he has to do some live streams. So we're gonna kick through some questions here for Sam, and then you guys who are watching the live stream on youtube.com/12etalk, make sure you hang around to the end. If you guys have any questions that we didn't ask that you want to ask, then you can ask, and we'll ask him. And that's how it works. So first off, Sam, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us how you got into car audio. Tell us anything you want to tell us about all that good stuff, because we're interested to hear about it.
Cool stuff. Well, yeah, I'm a pretty crazy guy from the UK. Got into the car audio. I can't really give a date as to when. I've always been really fascinated from a very young age by the bass knob on all the old school hi-fis growing up. You know, you're a big old Pioneer hi-fi or something, or any retro Rotel thing, and I was like, hey, yeah, turn up. And you see, the second I saw the speaker start to move, I was absolutely hooked. I was like, yes, that is awesome. Give me some more of that. And then just growing up into my sort of early teens and mid-teens years, I inherited a very nice Rotel hi-fi system from my parents, which was from the sure it's from like the 70s or 80s, really old school thing, beautiful boombox. And yeah, it had these really soft, punchy speakers and this great big bass knob. And so I used to experiment by just trying to whack as many speakers as possible into the speaker outputs. Any old hi-fis that people, family members or friends didn't want, I would shove them up in there, dropping the load down to 0.008 or something probably, and yeah, things get pretty hot. And yeah, I just loved the ability to make it sound better than it was by, well, I thought it was better sound better than it was by adding as many speakers as possible. And then when things didn't go right, as you'd expect, eventually things go wrong because the home load's so bloody low. I was then I was like, oh, why has that happened? And then I'd sort of look up online what caused that, and then do it different next time. I learned the hard way. I learned by sort of going through old equipment and damaging it, and then figuring out why that happened and making sure that didn't happen again. And that's how I learned about Ohm's law, series parallel wiring, and then different speakers. I was like, why has that one got a hole in it and this one hasn't? I learned about ported and sealed enclosures and stuff like that. Car audio, probably was literally from the age of, I would say, 14 or 15, when I started buying off eBay just your cheap sort of Sony Explode Pioneer subwoofers that compared to what I'd been playing with before were absolutely massive. I could not believe the size of these things. And then amplifiers to run them indoors. I got into a little bit of electronics trying to run car amps indoors, which got me really interested in electronics. And then when I finally got a car of my own, I think I was like 18 or 19. I had a red Mini for a while. Many people will remember. And I used to put bass in that, but I couldn't actually hardwire it in because it was a company car. And so I used to experiment with capacitors and small batteries and switches and relays and stuff like that, which got me interested in electronics some more. And when I finally got my Proton, I got a couple of Pioneers in there and a sealed box, and I experimented with building my own boxes, working out that actually if you don't use any glue on the top on the brace, then that's gonna the baffle, then that's not going to work out too well. So I learned about enclosures that way. It pretty much has just come from there. All of it has been self-taught and trial and error experimentation. Pretty much literally to where I am now, even the amplifier repair stuff.
Yeah, that's the best way to learn. In a lot of cases, you can read all you want to about how to do stuff, but even Wayne Harris said that in the previous episode. If you don't get your hands in on it and work with it yourself, and you kind of learn, what works, what doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
You can hear people talk about it all the time online, but until you experience it yourself and get your hands dirty, and that's the way to do it, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. You got to dive in the deep end with these things. To some extent, you just got to be like, right, this is what I want to do. Let's get the thing, and let's just have a play with it and see what happens. And you'll get things wrong. You will get things wrong, but that is the way to getting things right.
That's right, and that you hear it all the time about entrepreneurs that make money. They fail a lot of times before they do something right. So if you don't take the chance, then you never get to that point. So
absolutely, I say that to my friends all the time. Literally, I have friends that try to start their own business and all sorts of things, and I think in their head they're expecting to get it and to be popular within a year or something. They're like, I've got the great idea for this product or service, and they do all the stuff, and then it's just like nothing going on. And I say, look at all these people that made massive, profitable, successful businesses. Sometimes they'd be kicking at it for like 8 years and literally scrounging and not really getting any income, and then all of a sudden, boom. So they do something, they get some exposure somewhere, and it takes off. And you just got to stick with what you love, stick with what you want to do.
And that is very relevant to the whole YouTube discussion that we're going to talk about now as well, because I can't tell you how many times, I'm sure you guys experience the same thing when you're around family, talking to friends, you tell them how YouTube works, and show them this kid that does videos about unboxing toys, and he's all of a sudden making $30-some million a year, and they're like, oh, I should do that. I'm like, well, you can. Anybody can do it. It's free. But, there's not many people that have the stick-to-itiveness, if that's the correct word, as to do these videos and stick around. Because, you guys both know this is not something you just do and you become popular. You have to put the sweat, the blood, the tears, the time into creating the videos to build your audience up. And it's not a simple thing.
Absolutely.
But, so first off, we're going to ask you about your channel. So YouTube channel is youtube.com/Barevids. So tell us a little bit about your YouTube channel.
So the YouTube channel, it started, very, very back before it was anything to do with audio. I get a lot of people ask me, where does the Barevids name come from? What's that all about? In my very early teen years at school, in the UK, the word bear is it's a slang term for many, very many. So I had a bunch of videos from school that I wanted to upload to YouTube, and I had so many videos. I was like, oh, I've got Barevids here, and so I was like, when I came across YouTube, I was like, I just named my channel Barevids because that's literally, I just had so many videos to upload. And then I started posting videos of the speakers moving because I was fascinated by that. And then I've realized that other people like watching speakers moving too on YouTube. That's a pretty cool thing. I was like, oh, this is cool. I've got a bunch of speakers laying around. Let's just film those and let's just film crazy experiments with that. And it just kind of went off from there, really. I got a small following of kind of kids my age doing the similar sort of thing with their Logitech systems. And then anything that I bought new or any kind of, because I was always very experimental, and I think people like that. You know, I was always wiring things up in weird ways or something, and people kind of like seeing some stuff done differently, yeah, it's pretty much has gone from there. I still don't really do enough content. Like, I've got so many ideas of content in my head that I really want to do. This past couple of years with the repairs has taken off massively because I'm the only guy in the UK that's specializing in car amplifiers at the moment. So the work is just horrifically massive stacking back. I've got many actual full videos like I used to do, you know, all edited and stuff like that I want to do. So make sure you stay tuned on the channel. There's lots of cool stuff that I've got planned, and obviously the live streams of the amplifiers as well.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I've literally got a book full of things. I'm going to do this video, and I just page through like, okay, what can I do this week? What do I have time for to try to do this week?
Yeah, exactly.
So, what video on your channel would you say you're most proud of?
I would say the video I'm most proud of is probably the first video that I did that was surrounding amplifier repair. I put it off for quite a while. I wanted to make sure that I had gained enough knowledge and experience to give good quality information across in the video. And I'd never really shown anything like that on my channel before. And that was when my channel took a turn really from just being excursion videos and sort of weird demo videos and stuff like that, which I was kind of running out of ideas to do on that. In that respect, I don't tend to, because I don't really enjoy, and I'm not particularly good, in fact, at the whole fabrication thing, like for example EXO or Steve Meters, for example. So I don't really tend to do logs of like my own builds, because I have a very good friend who is just a gazillion times better than me at the fabrication side of it. And if I want something, if I'm going to be videoing it or I want it to represent my brand, I need it to be built in the best way. And I knew that I don't really have the patience or the skill to do that. So I don't generally do the build logs. So I was like, well, really, there's only so much excursion videos and whatnot you can do. So when I started doing the amplifier repair stuff, I was like, there's not really anything on YouTube about that, you know, that shows how to do this. So I wanted to give a sort of really overview that everyone could understand and everyone could relate to on how these things work. And then that kicked off, and I got loads of interest. And I was like, well, people want to fix this stuff. Like, you know, especially in the UK, there was only me doing it. And I know from in the States, a lot of people want to send their amps to me. That's how little people there are in the States doing it. So I thought, this is such a throwaway society. People are like, I can't fix it. I can't get it fixed. Let's just chuck it away, get a new one. No, man, this is a really lovely stuff. In a lot of ways, older kit is sometimes better than the newer stuff anyway. So if people can want to give a go at fixing it, there's nothing lost. And I think that it helped change society a little bit with all the waste, just literally, and learning to fix something yourself when you get it working, it's such a satisfying feeling as well. So I kind of wanted to share that with the car audio world, really.
Yes, very interesting to watch your videos, you know, because you have some very long form videos that are well over an hour, and then you have some other ones that are very short. But I enjoy, you know, I understand amplifiers somewhat. I'm not a repair technician or things like that, but when I watch your videos and, you know, see how you troubleshoot, like from start to finish, you said, oh, let's replace this component, and you try that, and I think this might be it. You fire it up, and well, maybe it'll be something else. You get your oscope out and do some more testing. But you know, that process of, you know, almost like a person that works on a computer or a car, you really have to, you take it one step at a time and just work through your process. But showing that to people, and people who have any interest in it, it's just really it's really fascinating to me to see, you know, the process of how that works. The other good thing about it is a lot of people think, you know, an amp repair shouldn't cost more than 40 or 50 US dollars. But when they see the time and effort that it takes you just to disassemble it, you know, to get to the components and do the soldering and do everything else you have to do, it really helps people understand why it costs, you know,
absolutely,
quite a bit
absolutely,
more.
and it is mostly the majority of the repair cost is the labor time. Electronic components, if anyone's ever looked up electronic components, they're pretty cheap. The times when the components actually make up quite a large portion of the amplifier repair is the bigger amplifiers. especially the newer ones, the MOSFETs can be anywhere between £2 and £5 each. And when you've got 32 of those to replace, yeah, it does add up. And then you've got the labor on top of that. But when you look at the amplifier, to buy brand new or to buy used is going to be anywhere between 800,000 or something. If the repair is going to cost you 300 or 400, what other options do you have to getting that same power back again? You can either repair the one that you've just given in, and it comes out of the repair shop, as long as there's not like a hole in the board or something. It comes out of the shop as a new amplifier, all matched and new components. So it's not like any of them are getting worn out already, really. Anyway, so yeah, it's kind of like buying a new amplifier. I always give a warranty on my repairs anyway, so there's the customer, if the customer gets it back and it's gone, and I know that it's not really anything that he's done or there's no reason for it, then I'll warranty it. It's no big deal. So I try and convince people to go for the repair rather than just chucking it and getting a new one.
Yeah, you did a really cool video recently that I had never even considered, showing where you set the gains with the amplifier loaded versus unloaded.
And
can you talk about that for the people that didn't
Yeah,
get to see
of
it?
course. There's a lot of there's different opinions surrounding that, and probably the most popular opinion with setting the gains with the speakers loaded or unloaded is to set the gains with the speakers unloaded, and that comes from the people that own the SMD DD1, because the instruction manual for that advises that you set the gains with it unloaded. Now, there's actually a lot of back and forth things that go on that actually probably level it out in the end, as to where, setting the gains with it loaded or unloaded, it probably levels out to about the same anyway. So, for example, if you set your gains with the engine running, so you've got 14.4 volts going into the vehicle, and your speakers disconnected, and that's probably the worst one to do. If you want to set your gains with your speakers disconnected, have the vehicle off so that the voltage going to amplify is only 12 volts, which brings the rails down to not exactly, but close enough to where they would be if you hooked your speakers up at 14 volts. So, at the end of the day, it's not the end of the world. But what I didn't want people to be doing was to be saying that, because people think, okay, so if I'm going to set my gains, then the amplifier is going to clip at the highest point with my engine on. So therefore, I'll turn my engine on and I'll disconnect my subs as per the D1 instructions, and then they set their gain clip point to the clipping point with the subwoofers disconnected. And what I didn't want to be happening is that they plug all their subs in, putting a huge load on the amplifier, and all of a sudden that square wave is massively capped off. And that's something that I saw and sort of realized was an issue when I was helping people set up their cars, and they were going to unscrew their subs, and I was like, why are you doing that? And then it sort of clicked to me that people would, this was like probably the most popular opinion, and it's by no means wrong. It's going to make a minor difference. It's a little bit more unsafe, but not massively. A bit of soft clip is fine. So I just wanted to make people aware of the differences doing that. Not necessarily to say you must set your gains with it disconnected or connected. You can do it either way. I just wanted people to be aware of the differences so that they can think about that when they're doing it.
Yeah, that's awesome, because I was one of those people. I was completely unaware of that until I seen it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it like he said from now on.
Yeah. And the thing with this, I didn't want to sort of go against what Tony was saying in the manual for the DD1 either. And another thing that comes into the whole equation with the DD1 is that the gains are set with a different I don't know what they call it, offset, I think he calls it, where you're not playing a 0 dB tone, you're playing like maybe a -6 or you're playing not the same, you're not just playing just a straight tone out of a thing, you're playing it at a lower level, which also changes the results again entirely. So there's a lot of different factors, but like I just wanted people to know that there is a difference and it does change it.
That's again the trial and error that we talked about before. I've got a theory of why they put what they put in the manual, but we'll ask Tony if we can ever get him on this show. But I think they did it because of the 1 kilohertz track when you're doing the high end of the amp, because you don't want to do that one with your speakers plugged in.
No.
Yeah. So it may have been that, but we'll find out. But yeah, again, this is another case where showing people both scenarios. Hey, that's the trial and error part.
Get the maximum amount of information out there, let people make their own decision.
That's right. We definitely want to show instead of just talk about it, because everybody can talk about what to do, but when you show people, that's the way to do it, my opinion. What were you going to say, Rob? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, you're always going to get the people that say, oh, well, you're doing this just to go up against somebody, when that's not what you're doing. You're just trying to get the information out there. That doesn't have to cut anybody to do something like that.
there's a video that I've got planned that I'm going to do, which will probably cause some people to say things like that. I'm going against things. I have a video planned about amplifier impedance and wiring below 1 ohm. And I'm going to sort of initially give some advice that people are going to be like, what? And then I'm going to explain the reasons behind that and the sort of work and the thoughts you need to make before doing it. So I'm looking forward to seeing comments and responses on that one. But I'm going to make as much content as possible to explain my reasons for it.
That is a fantastic tease.
Yes.
Subscribe at youtube.com/Barevids. Now, when's that video coming out? I'm just kidding. That's the problem with teasing people.
It's been in my head since like September or something. I just haven't got around to it yet. But we'll do it soon.
Yeah, that'll be exciting. Yeah. So as far as your as your amplifier business, you do repairs. Is this something you do full time? You do that, or what do you do as a full time job? If you don't mind me asking.
No, of course, man. Audio is the amplifier repairs is my main income, my main breadwinner. I also, in the UK, I deal digital designs, SPL Lab, LW Audio for a while. They're out of production at the moment, and Bandit Audio Parts for a while as well. So, so selling audio, good quality audio, repairing amplifiers, but the repairs are the majority of the income. I also, in the wedding season, I also DJ the occasional, I do like a couple of weddings a week or something, which brings in some nice extra cash for the summer, especially in the sort of show in the lead up to the show season when the wedding season is on as well. If people are blowing amps or whatever, they tend to want they tend to either want to just get another amp in there real quick and not wait for a repair, and so the repairs kind of tend to quieten down a bit. Probably the most busy time for repairs is coming to the end of summer into sort of September time. That's when people are like, oh, I've got all this stuff laying around that I blew up in the show season. Let's get all that fixed and sold. And, yeah.
So this is a little outside of what we had planned, but what's the car audio scene like in the UK, as far as competition or just general, is there a big car culture there in the car audio scene or?
Yeah. So it was really interesting coming to the States actually to visit Digital Designs, because I don't think that many guys over in the States realize how different and how much smaller it is over here. It is compared to how it is for you guys over there. It is tiny. And the scene is, because it's quite small, it's a quite closely woven net of people, and everyone kind of know anyone that's got anything really to do in the audio scene, shops, installers that actually know what they're doing. Everyone knows each other. It's like a big family. It's quite lovely in that respect. And in terms of what people are into, the car scene, all the cars over here, if you've ever been to the UK, are teeny tiny as well compared to what you guys have over there. All the roads are closest together as hell, so all the cars are really small. So generally, the builds are much smaller as well, and because of new laws coming in with pollution and what cars you can have, etc., people are going for more smaller builds. Probably the biggest business in the UK for car audio is actually the OEM upgrade. So it's not like a big SPL build or subs on show or anything. It's literally changing the factory speakers, make them sound fantastic, and time-aligned DSP. People want the really nice sound, and they don't want it seen. They want their boot space. They want the wife to be happy. That's the biggest business there. In terms of the SPL, the actual active fun, the SPL scene, DB drag used to be very popular years ago here, but that has all completely changed. The most popular style of competition and style of install now over here is street bass. Low frequency, between 20 and 40 hertz is where people want their subs really playing loud at. And it's all compacted into tiny cars and tiny cabins, to the point where you're not comfortable driving because you're like this with the wheel, and the wall's like there behind your head and whatnot. Gets you good and loud because the cabins are so small. But yeah, it's all low frequency. Sundown audio is probably the number one in terms of popularity. People recognizing the brand as being a fantastic brand that gives them the sound that they want, because of the sort of Sundown woofer build, how the woofers are designed. It's giving people what they want.
Yeah, Sundown is obviously very popular in the United States as well.
Mm-hmm.
They make great products, so it's hard to
absolutely
knock them when they do. So we want to talk a little bit. I do want to get more into the amplifier repairs, but I do want to talk a little bit about your YouTube, because those of us who do YouTube, like Rob and I know a lot of people that are watching the stream here, are intrigued to understand your YouTube setup. Can you show us a little bit about what you have there and kind of explain what you have going
Yeah,
on? I know you have several cameras and
got a handle cam here, so I can kind of. It's this was meant to be a temporary kind of setup with this desk here, but temporary always becomes permanent when you're busy. So the setup is with the live streaming. I have a whole bunch of cameras here. I think I've got something like 8 cameras going on here, and all they are is they're just really cheap old webcams from like back in the early 2000s, Logitech, and you know they cost a fair bit back in the day, but you can pick these up for like £10 or $10 on eBay. And so I wanted to get as many camera angles as possible for the viewers. I watched a lot of, before I started doing live stream, I watched a lot of Lewis Rossman. He does MacBook repairs on YouTube, fucking really awesome channel. And I saw that he had a bunch of different camera angles going on and things flashing on the screen, and I thought that's a really good flowing way to work, workflow for the viewers. So I wanted to try and replicate that in some sense with lots and lots of camera angles. So yeah, the amplifier repair setup, as far as the repair stuff goes, if I could change to my handheld camera. So yeah, this is an awesome piece of kit. Now this is a really cool thing that I love, because this was actually, I was able to purchase this bench power supply as a result of direct result of donations from my viewers to my channel. So before I was just using like your regular sort of plug power adapter, a 9-volt thing, little 2-amp thing, and I had to change it up for bigger amplifiers to a computer power supply. It was a bit of a pain in the butt, and I couldn't see the current draw or anything like that. So this I absolutely love this thing. So yeah, this is just, it's a voltage regulated and current regulated bench power supply. I can go between 0 and 16 volts and 0 to 20 amps, which is more than enough for working on amplifiers, getting them up and running and seeing what the faults are. So that's the bench power supply, and I have a wire going into the back of it that goes down under the desk to a foot switch here. And this controls the amplifier remote. So I have the 3 wires going in, positive, ground, negative, and the remote wire is linked to the foot pedal. So I can be working on the amplifier with both hands, looking at other things over here. If I notice something start to heat up or some wave that doesn't look right, it's much quicker for me to just release my foot in an instant than having to go all the way over and pull the wire out. Just a fraction of a second can save a bunch of MOSFETs. It can save you like 80 to 100 pounds or bucks on parts if you notice it quick enough and you can release the remote quick enough. And it also allows me to pulse and test at the same time. So that's probably my favorite part of the setup is the remote, foot pedal remote. I also have 3 other remotes down, foot pedals down here that control the camera angles, so I can be changing cameras whilst I'm working on the amplifier without having to touch the keyboard. Or I don't usually have the keyboard on the desk because it gets in the way. The soldering station probably will change soon. I bought this before I started doing big repair stuff, and I got it pretty cheap on eBay. It was used. It's an AOUA. People ask me all the time. I don't really know how you pronounce this. AOUA. That's the model number there. It's okay. It's a budget soldering station. It works for me. The iron is temperature controlled. I don't know how accurate it is, but I know the numbers on the screen that do what I want to do. So that's all that's important. Whether it's actually 400 degrees or whether it's 200, I don't care, as long as I know that that's the right temperature for what I'm doing. And another feature I like about it is that it has the fume extractor nozzle right by the tip. Man, these fumes get nasty. These flux and these lead fumes get nasty, and I can't stress enough, it's very important to get those fumes away from you. If you're doing repairs every day like I am, your lungs aren't designed to get rid of that stuff. So definitely fume extraction is very important on there. And it also has a hot air gun, which usually attaches to the side. As you can see, it's fallen off because it's cheap and a little bit cheap. But yeah, this is what I use for doing the surface mount soldering, which is an absolute godsend as well. I wouldn't be able to do the IC chip replacements, which is essential because that's the most common thing on these amps to die without this. So this and some tweezers are probably the tools that I use the most, along with the iron. I have not big enough. I need to get another one of these or another 10 of these. Bunch of drawers which contains all the common components and parts that the amplifiers use. And the fact that this actually is so small and fits pretty much all of the stuff that I need to repair 99% of amplifiers should tell you that they mostly contain pretty similar stuff inside. So that's pretty much all the parts that I need to replace when an amplifier goes down. The output MOSFETs, power supply MOSFETs, resistors, gate drivers, etc. It's all in there. My oscilloscope is probably my favorite purchase. My favorite purchase in a sense. I would be completely lost, and people say all the time to me, Sam, can you help me with the repair I'm doing? maybe they'll be sort of, they got an amplifier, they watch a bunch of my videos and they'll say, this looks really good. I've checked this with the multimeter. It looks like my FETs are down, blah, blah, blah. And then they say, I've replaced them, but it heats up. And I say, what do your drive waves look like? And they say, I don't have a scope. And maybe they've got a few amps lined up they want to repair. I say to them, man, even if you buy this scope to just repair that one amplifier and sell it afterwards, do it. You are completely blind without an oscilloscope there, because all the stuff that's going on this board, everything is waves. So everything that tells you, is the amp okay? Is it going to die again pretty soon? Is down to the shape of waves that you see on different sections. So you can't see that unless you have an oscilloscope. And using an oscilloscope as a multimeter as well, I use it as a multimeter for DC voltage and frequency as well, because it's instant. There's no delay. I hate really good fluke multimeters that you can buy. They're very accurate. They're very good multimeters, but there's a small delay from when you touch, you read the voltage. You have to wait for the screen to work out the scale, and then it displays the number. If you need really accurate, quick measurements, you just want to tap your probe on there. You want to go along each FET, doing on the scope, because obviously the refresh rate is so fast, because it needs to be able to measure waves. It's an instant on the screen, and you can even see noise on a DC rail, which, if it shouldn't be there, that tells you something that's wrong with the amplifier, and you would never see that on a multimeter. So as a result of that, the multimeter that I use is your cheap of the cheap, most basic thing that you can find. You can get these for like £10. All I use this for is continuity. Literally, all I use this for is continuity. So I just listen out for the beep. And the bigger multimeters, again, they have a delay. The continuity mode on this multimeter doesn't have a delay. So literally, the second that there is continuity on the probes, it makes a beep. And so if I'm looking for a short circuit, or I'm looking for where does this resistor connect to on the board, then I can just go ahead and run the probe along the board, like back and forth, like a brush, and I can hear the instantaneous beep from that. And you can't do that with good multimeters that have a delay. So the multimeter, you don't need an expensive multimeter if you've got a good scope.
That's a good pro tip. We're getting all kind of good pro tips today.
Yeah, well, I just trying to basically go through all the stuff, like why I use the stuff I do.
And you have some load resistors and stuff there, I see as well.
Yeah, I was just going to go on to the so with bench testing amplifiers after they've been repaired. Obviously that can get a bit expensive and a bit complicated when running. Like if you need to test to full output like a 10K amplifier indoors, you don't just need a 10K power supply. You need like a 15 or 16 or 18K power supply, because what's going into the amplifier, there's efficiency drop, of course. So if you're powering 10K, you need like 16K, and you need it at 14.4 volts, and all the big power supplies are all 12 volts that you can find. So it gets a bit of a pain in the butt. But the stuff that I use, if I can go back to my handle camera. Again, sorry about the mess in here, but this is a pair of Dell server power supplies. So these are old school ones, back when servers were less efficient. And so because they are for commercial use, they are absolutely built like a brick. So they give out 175 amps each at 12 volts, but that is horrifically underrated. So that is before any voltage drop whatsoever. So I have clamped these things kicking out combined over 500-600 amps. With these two, and you get a bit of voltage drop, but you can calculate that into your reading. And for actually loading the amplifiers, these are just very generic dummy loads from eBay. You get these from China, they import them. So what I have here is I have four 4-ohm dummy loads, and they will take 1,000 watts continuously all day long, as long as you keep them cool. So for burst tests, each one you can shove between 4 and 5K into. So that's sort of 4, 8, 12, 16. So really I could burp sort of 16K into these all right down to 1 ohm, and it wouldn't be a problem. Having 4 rather than just 1 at 1 ohm gives me the ability to test 4, 2, 1.3, 1, and everything in between with the calculation of series parallel. So that's very useful. And I also use these a lot when I'm working on amplifiers like this one. All these capacitors bloody. So once the amplifier's been powered up, and you've got something like 400 volts DC potential sitting on the rails. So yeah, if you touch that, your hand's gonna get blown off. So yeah, pretty dangerous. So before I can work on the amplifier after turning it on and testing it, I have to wait for the capacitors to discharge themselves through the pull down resistors in the board, which takes a long time. So I use the dummy loads, put a wire on them, and I short out the rectifiers, which is what the caps are on. So I just drain out the caps through the dummy loads, which allows me to work on the amplifier again without having to wait for the voltage to drop back down.
Another pro tip: how to not kill yourself while working on an amplifier. Tune in to Barevids to learn more about that.
Well, I think we can all know a little bit about that, using those braking resistors, loading amps down, using Dell power supplies. I know Dee's used them. I've used them.
There's the HP ones are actually slightly better because you can tweak those very easily for 14 volts. You can tweak the Dell ones for 14 volts, which I've done, but for some reason they don't output any current at 14 volt. You can get them to sit at 14 volt, but as soon as you put any load on them, it drops back down to 12 again. But I actually do have a couple of spare HP ones sitting down here, and those you can boost them very easily to 14.4 volts with a small resistor on some of the output pins. But they don't have a built-in fan, and so they require me to build an enclosure with a bunch of fans and all sorts of stuff like that. I just haven't really got around to it, but I probably will at some point. But the HP ones, they can kick out 150 amps per thing. So I might just go ahead and get like 4 or 6 of those, about £50 each on eBay, and that way I can test at 14 volts rather than 12, and without having to make the calculation. It'd just be a bit of an easier setup. The HP, I'll try and find what the model number of those are if anyone that's interested.
All right, cool. I know everybody is interested in how to test amplifiers and how to power them up at home. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. Power supplies are one, super caps, batteries. There's a lot of different ways to do that. Obviously, if you're going to be repairing, you need something with a constant flow of amperage. So you want to get something like a nice power supply. So we saw that you had all those different components that were in your little storage rack there. So you obviously repair a lot of different brands. And a lot of the different brands, as people have seen, I'm sure, when you show the guts, a lot of them are pretty similar, right? Class D, 5Ks, So do you have any that are seem to be more problematic? I don't want you to call it any specific brand, I don't guess, but
no, I'll tell you what the biggest problem with car amplifiers is not the brand, not the board layout, it's vibration. That is probably 80% of my amplifiers that come in for repair. The reason that it's failed and gone down is the majority of the time vibration damage. The next most common thing is just user error, wired the polarity backwards, the sub blew and shorted the speaker terminal wire touched the car chassis ground, something like that. Obviously you get amplifiers come in that have failed seemingly of their own accord, no vibration damage, user didn't do anything differently, setup looks really good. They do fail, quite commonly. I would say that in terms of reliable electronics that are out there in the world, commercial electronics and things that are go through vigorous testing and build and design processes, car audio is probably one of the least reliable types of electronic devices that are around, because the manufacturers know that they're not using a controlled environment. A manufacturer is not going to be selling these amps and they're all going to be used in exactly the same way, and so they generally don't go through the same rigorous design and test processes that other consumer electronics do that are in a set environment. And so because of that, there are many changes that I'm aware of and that many other people may be aware of to these sort of generic board designs that massively increase their reliability. But the thing is that they're just so mass produced, and all the sort of board layouts are all done already. There's generally not a huge requirement to do it. If a car amplifier lasts you sort of 4 or 5 years, the manufacturer doesn't really care if it dies after that point, because most of the time people are selling it on by then, or they might have accidentally blew it up already, or the vibration has got to it, in which case it's a user fault. So they're not looking to try and make the amplifier last for sort of 10, 20 years. It's quite the turnover is quite high on the car audio electronics and even the subwoofer level.
So for the listeners, this is the third Amp Tech we've had on in 2 weeks, and they said vibration kills. So listen to them. They're not lying.
If you mount your amp to the sub box, no matter how crazy, like how strong you make the sub box, the amp's going to die, whether it's in a week, whether it's in a month, whether it's in 12 months, whether it's in 5 years. You know, if you make the box like flipping, 12 inches thick or whatever, the amp's not going to die anytime soon. But there's still very minor vibrations that do get to it, and so it's not a matter of if the amplifier will die from vibration, it's when, and it's all down to how strong the box is made.
But it gives you more amps to repair, so they can listen to you, or they
Keep
can
putting them
just
on the
pay you.
box. Yeah.
Mount it
Best
to the
place
box, he
for 'em.
says.
More dBs. Man, guys will do anything for an extra 0.1, 0.2 dBs, man. Yeah. Oh, and only put 2 screws in the amplifier on the box as well, because more screws causes more resistance and loses your dBs.
That's right. So, what are some of the more popular brands? You mentioned Sundown before, but are there any other real popular brands in the UK as far as amplifiers go?
Baseface has absolutely blown up. The most part for the price. I don't think you guys have Baseface out in the States. I don't think it's it's all over Europe like a plague. Baseface started out as one of those horrific kind of brands that you saw on eBay. You were like, oh God, no, like what the hell? And I think luckily they actually got given some really good advice, and they got sort of mentored by some guys in the UK that knew a thing or two about the audio scene, and their products went from being cheap and horribly nasty to cheap and okay for the price. It is very cheaply made gear. The sort of generic consumer level stuff, the sort of 1500 watt amps and the subs that will take a K and stuff like that. It is all very generic stuff from China. The Baseface themselves haven't actually made or designed, or they haven't done any audio research of themselves that I'm aware of. It's all just gone to the factory and said, we want this. Maybe with the newer amplifiers, because of where they're going now with it, they have had an amp tech guy, and he said, oh, it would be with this board layout, it'd be good if you just changed a few bits here to this design. It's still the same generic design, but there are a few tweaks to make it more reliable, etc. And so for the general consumer that wants to whack a few subs in their car, wants like a loud daily, the kit is not bad. So in terms of stuff that I see the most of, I do see, if I haven't really ever worked it out, but I would say the Baseface is the most common thing that I see. Not necessarily because it's the most unreliable, because there's so much of it. So there is a part of that. Is it unreliable, or is it just that the market is flooded with this stuff, so that even if it's a small percentage of the stuff dying, I see a lot of it. So yeah, the Baseface stuff I see recently. I've seen quite a lot of Sundown stuff. Sundown make fantastic amplifiers. They have fantastic amplifiers made, but there are quite a lot of them in the UK, and I think it's just been a bit of bad luck recently. Quite a lot of sort of 5-6K stuff come in. Apart from that, Hyphonics stuff I see a lot of, and I see a lot of the same board. Hyphonics made a bunch of amplifiers with all the slightly different revisions to the name, but the amp inside was exactly the same. And it actually has a design flaw, and it's like a ticking bomb. So the amplifier actually does die after a set amount of hours in use. And so I see a lot of those, but it's a pretty basic, cheap repair for the customer, so that's not too bad. Apart from that, it's quite a mixed bag, really, because over here in the UK, there aren't a huge number of really big, like SPL loud brands that are here anyway. Most of the stuff's imported from the States, so there's a real mixed bag of bigger stuff. Sundown probably being the most popular of that category. And you've got Digital Designs, loads of SPL dynamic stuff flying around. There's a few DC amplifiers flying around. Digital Designs, I think I said that. But yeah, it's a real mixed bag. Rather than say the brand that I see the most commonly, generally it's the Class D mono. The amp that's based on the IRS 21844S chip. If you watch my live streams, you know which one that is. The chips are very fragile, and they run very hot, and they do kind of have a operational lifespan. And so that's the stuff that I see all the time. And generally, the amplifiers are very big, and they have these great big lumbering inductors and transformers that are susceptible to being snapped off. So that's the stuff that I see the most of. Class D half bridge bass amplifiers.
So I know you mainly repair the Class Ds, but you obviously I've seen you repair some of the Class AB, the older amps too.
Yeah.
Do you have a? I know you probably, since you do more Class Ds, maybe you like those better. But do you have a preference of which one is maybe easier to repair, or is
Yeah,
there any?
the thing with Class AB is and probably the reason for this is because I never took any electronics classes or any. I didn't have any background on how the electronics works in certain circuits that are present in Class AB amps. Because of that, all of my knowledge is based on experience, and because I've done most of the mostly Class D amplifiers, that's what I'm best at. Class AB can either be super easy in the sense of just replacing output devices, or they can be a right pain in my butt because the drive circuit is not the same like in the Class Ds, because it's all based on switch waves. It's very easy to follow the path of on why something's not working properly, or why something's heating up, or why it's failing. You can just look at the shape of the switch wave, which is always present, and it goes from A to B to C. It's quite easy to follow. On a Class AB amplifier, it's not like that. It's all just the audio sine wave, and it's present all over the place in the drive circuit. It doesn't follow a simple path of going from here to here to here. There's all sorts of circuit areas in the Class A amplifier, the drive circuit, where you need a specific amount of current going to one of the legs of a transistor, and you can't read current with a oscilloscope probe. It's not that easy. You need to put something across it or something. It's when there's a drive circuit issue with Class AB amplifier, just because of my own experience and knowledge, I'm much less confident with drive circuit faults on a Class AB amplifier. So I would say, yeah, the Class D stuff all day long, I can fix pretty much anything you throw at me. But the Class AB stuff, there have been amplifiers that I've struggled with because the drive circuit has had many burnt components, and I've not really known where to start with it.
So, what's the most powerful amp you've repaired?
Most powerful amplifier I've repaired is probably 18,000 watts at 14.4. That was a Taramps 15K, HD 15K. It wasn't a very complicated repair. There's not a lot going on inside those amplifiers in terms of component numbers anyway. So if something does fail, and because they're PIC controlled, they're digitally controlled by firmware, the protection circuits are lightning fast. So when something does go wrong with the amplifier, usually it's only a few components on the output section that need to be replaced. So although it was a very big, powerful output amplifier, it's probably one of the more simple repairs that I've done. The biggest half bridge, like the biggest in terms of size, component number, and that I've repaired has probably either been the one that's on the bench at the moment, or a Ground Zero 10K HC, which is the one with the triple inputs. I was a chrome one. I did actually it's quite one of my more popular amplifier repair videos. Actually, is the Ground Zero 10K repair. Yeah, I'd say that's probably the biggest kind of general Class D half bridge amplifier that I've done.
So how do you feel about Class D versus the Brazilian style amps?
Same. It's both. They're all Class D. There's not a lot of difference in how the amplifier works itself. The only difference is that the Brazilian companies have gone to amplifier design technicians and said, we want amplifiers designed based around modern MOSFET and drive technology, and chips that are available and MOSFETs that are available. And we also want the amplifier controlled by firmware, by a chip that we program, so it's easier for us to set protection points and change between 1 ohm and 2 ohm versions and things like that. The actual Class D operation of the amplifiers is exactly the same, other than a Brazilian amplifier is 2 Korean amplifiers in the same case in strap mode, essentially. So with a Korean amplifier, these half bridge amplifiers, you only have the positive speaker terminal doing the sine wave, and the negative is just taking that and grounding it. So on a Korean amplifier, in order to get a certain amount of power, you might need the positive speaker terminal to swing between 150 volts and negative 150 volts, and that will give you a 300 volt potential difference on the speaker terminal. Whereas with the Brazilian amplifiers, because they're full bridge, the speaker terminals do this. The negative isn't ground, it's another positive just out of phase, as you know. And as a result of that, in order to get 300 volts potential difference between these two, rather than there having to be 300 volts potential difference between the positive, so on the half bridge, the positive terminal and all the components that are driving the audio have to be able to deal with a 300 volt potential difference. And so with higher voltage components, they're always much lower current handling, because as you go up in voltage, the current handling goes down in these components. So in order to drive 300 volt potential difference, 150 plus, 150 minus, these components need to be 300 volt components, whereas in a full bridge amplifier, each one of these only needs to go to 150 volts plus minus. So not only do you have modern MOSFET technology, which are much higher current FETs to start with, they only have to be half the voltage MOSFETs inside the amplifier, which means they can be almost double the current MOSFETs in the amplifier, which means you need even less of them. So that's why you see Brazilian 10K amplifiers or 15K amplifiers using 8 FETs, and you're like, what the? And you see a Korean one using 32 FETs. It doesn't seem to make any sense initially. But then when you say that the Brazilian FETs are only dealing with half the voltage and double the current, then that's half to start with. And then they're modern MOSFET technology, and so the FETs are again double the power again. So then you only need really like a quarter or less of the number of FETs in the Brazilians than you do the Koreans. But in terms of actually how it makes audio, it's exactly the same. It's class D. It works at a higher frequency to get full range, because the MOSFETs are much better nowadays, and the drive circuits are much better as well nowadays. And it's all controlled by firmware, but it's the same technology. It's the same class D thing. There's nothing magically massively different about the Brazilians over the Koreans in terms of how they make a sine wave.
So Matt's audio that makes amplifiers here in the U.S. has been doing the full bridge design for a while as well. But you know what I find interesting about it is the size difference, right? I mean, I know you talk about output devices and stuff, but you still would think mentally, if I've got a 5K amp, it needs to be a certain length in order to dissipate the heat.
That is a thing. Yeah.
Yeah, the fact they're so much smaller, what's up with that?
That is the only thing that goes against the Brazilian amplifiers is the heat dissipation, the size of the heat sinks. That's why they will have these tiny little fans in them. And the reason that this isn't a problem for the Brazilians in Brazil is because those amplifiers are designed to be run on Brazilian style systems. They're in their country. They are making amplifiers in Brazil for probably initially Brazilian market. And so the way that they're thinking is the way that those amplifiers are going to run those speakers and subwoofers, they play music that has far less long, low extended sine wave bass notes in it. It's more punchy, kicky kind of stuff with a higher frequency bass note in it. The drivers they use are more like PA style woofers, or they have more in common with PA drivers than the likes of your Sundown and your DC audio stuff that we have over here. And those are much more efficient drivers with higher inductance and therefore higher impedance rise. So although the amplifier can do 15K or 10K, when it's used to its maximum potential in an install in Brazil, it's only going to be clamping, a third of that, if that. But you need the 15K there in order to clamp the 3K after all the rise and stuff like that the woofers present to the amplifier out there. So the reason that they can get away with it with the small heatsink is because the FETs just don't run very hot out there, because they're not clamping big power. And the issue that you have when you bring those same amplifiers over into the US or Europe or the UK, and you put them on low inductance, low impedance rise woofers, and you ask them to play a continuous sine wave for 3 minutes in a decaf song, not only are the MOSFETs used to their current limits, they're really struggling hard, but they can't get the heat away quick enough because there's just not that much heatsink material there. And that is why I will always say to people, out of all the Brazilian stuff that I'm aware of at the moment, my favorite is the Band of Viking 10K, because it is a 10K Brazilian amplifier that is the size of a Korean half-bridge amplifier in terms of heatsink size, massive heatsink. And when you look inside it, it actually uses double the amount of output and power supply components that the equivalent Tar amps or Sound Digital or Stetson amplifier uses, because Banda have built that with the European and US market in mind, with low impedance rise woofers and long extended bass notes. So that is a real rugged, absolutely mental beefy amplifier, the Viking series, the 10K and 14, 15K from Banda. Really cool thing.
Yeah, again, you're the second technician we've talked to in the past few weeks that has given props to Banda from a design aspect. And, we think about it a lot from the old school perspective about, having this engineering factor built in, that you don't want to run anything at its maximum. You always want to have that headroom. And I think a lot of ways with some of these Brazilian amps is that they don't have a whole lot of extra headroom built in because they're running right there at the maximum. And the other funny thing to me is when you see a manual for some of these, the tar amps, the sound digitals, some of the other ones, when they talk about how much current they pull, they'll say 320 amps, sinusoidal,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
130 amps music, and then they got 4 gauge inputs. I'm like,
yeah.
how
I
can
had that
you?
issue. Yeah,
Yeah, how
yeah,
can they assume that people can pull 240 amps through 4 gauge? But
yeah.
anyway, I know that they're
I had
working
that
on it.
issue with selling the band amplifiers. Yeah, they used to give the current rating was it was called average music program, and so they took an average of the current draw over a 3 minute period playing Brazilian music. And so not only was that after a huge impedance rise, but that was also just with the occasional kick, the kick drum constant thing there. So you had this 7K amplifier, and it was like, yeah, 150 amp music current draw program, and people were like, what the hell? There's magic amplifier here.
So with all that said, it sounds like you're kind of leaning toward that the full bridge design being more of what we're going to see in the future. Do you
Yeah,
think that may be
yeah.
what we're going to see more of?
That's where the amplifiers are headed in Korea are now making full bridge amplifiers. They haven't quite got the design right yet, but they are getting there. You've got amplifiers like the DS18, Vibe, Audio Edge over here in the UK. There's probably a bunch of brands over in the US that are using these same boards from Zenon that I'm aware of that are pretty small little boards with a twin fan, and they do I think it's like a 7K and a 10.5K version, which is a full bridge design, and it's similar kind of components to what you'd find. It's a nice cross between the old school Korean style and the Brazilian style in the sense that it's using Brazilian output devices, but it's actually still using the old. It's using sort of slightly older drive circuit technology that you'd find in a lot of their half-bridge amplifiers, but they're literally just putting two of their half-bridge amplifiers on the same board and driving the outputs like this. Yeah, they're getting there with it. They are a mixed bag of pretty decent and pretty unreliable, but it's going in the right direction for sure. These half-bridge board designs you see. They all look the same. Those board designs were made like sort of 15, 20 years ago when MOSFET technology and drive circuit technology was nowhere near what it is these days. And the problem is that it's far cheaper to just repurpose a board design and tweak a few things here and there and sell an amplifier than it is to employ a amplifier design technician and make something completely from scratch that it might not even be a stable revision for many years. So that's a real future thing, and that's why I have a huge respect for brands like JL Audio, Rockford Fosgate, Alpine, etc. that actually have something that the amplifier is their own. You don't find that board design anywhere else, especially the JL Audio stuff. It's very clever. JL Audio amplifiers, they're full bridge. They're very clever full bridge amplifiers. The Slash series, Alpine PDX amplifiers, full bridge. Vibe Monobox is a full bridge amplifier. A lot of the old Hyphonics amplifiers were full bridge, but people just didn't realize it back then. Yeah. I think it's going full bridge is the way forward, yeah, just needs to work on the reliability a little bit.
Yeah,
so with these,
go ahead,
go
Rob.
ahead, D. Oh, so with these big amps, have you ever had any scary moments repairing with all this capacitance that they hold?
Yeah, man. Of course, absolutely. Yeah, we're humans. We're not perfect. Our limbs are not the most efficiently controlled, by our brains. So your oscilloscope probe slips, and you accidentally lean on part of the amplifier that's still got 400 volts DC on it or something. Yeah, I've had. I mean, considering the amount of stuff that I've done and the types of amps I've worked on and how little experience I have in the real world, really, with this sort of thing, I've generally been okay. I've had. I think I've had 250 or 300 volts DC between my two fingers. But I think my body actually has a pretty high resistance. I don't get. I've got shocks and stuff before, but it's in a weird way. It actually felt quite nice. Like I was like, oh damn, like power is running through me. It was very strange. Yeah, that was really weird. And the scariest moments in terms of like worrying about my own well-being and stuff like that is times when I've been working on an amplifier and the thing explodes in my face like a big amplifier like this. All these capacitors, if a MOSFET shorts out, it's a direct short circuit on that FET, and that whole bank of them explodes. And the casings on the FETs, the plastic stuff, it's very, very hard and brittle. And so when these FETs explode, they it's like a grenade. It throws out this stuff like 200-mile-an-hour partial phase. And that's why I do actually have now some eye goggles in here for when I'd work on these big amps, and I'm powering up for the first time. I don't like it at all. I put my fingers in my ears as well. It's very loud to the point where the spark, the bang. It's like in the war movies you see when a bomb goes off and it all goes silent. You get that beep, like that's actually what happens. Yeah. I was working on, what is it, a Tara? Yeah, it was a Tara 10K, I think it was, or something. I had my oscilloscope probe and I was probing the rectifier, which had something stupid like 280 volts on it or something. I was like, that's a decent repair. It seems to be working fine. And so I turned the amplifier off. All the stuff's in the caps. Went to remove my oscilloscope probe and it touched the leg next to it. There's this absolute like blinding sun spark. Great big thing there. Couldn't hear for about 5 minutes. Yeah, but generally, I've been all right in terms of scary stuff, just big bangs and sparks and little tickle here and there.
Did you catch any of that on video, Sam?
Yeah, there's a few videos with big sparks and explosions in them. I've got a really cool picture saved on my phone actually that whenever someone talks about amplifier repair I just want to bang on Facebook, because I always post that sort of still shot from my live stream. It's great big spark. The annoying thing is because these cameras are pretty cheap, the refresh rate is very slow, so this thing happens instantaneously, so it's a bit hit and miss as to whether the camera actually picks up a frame where it was doing something cool. But yeah, I think there's about four or five live streams where there's a big explosion in there, which is caught quite nicely on camera. But it just takes ages to find it, because a lot of my live streams, the raw live streams, like sort of 4 hours long. But yeah, I have caught quite a few bits on camera.
Yeah, if you'll let me know at least a couple of them, what I'll do is I can link to them in the video description, and I can put the little timestamp on there, so it'll take people like right to the point where it blows up, because a lot of people want to see that for some reason. I don't know. People like destruction.
It's a cool thing to see. I actually have an idea. I actually do have an idea for a video, which I will do at some point this year, where I take an amplifier that I own myself and that is a really easy one to repair, or that's very cheap, I don't care about. Maybe like a 2K base face, for example, very common thing. Can't really get much money for those. And what I want to do is I want to booby trap it. So what I want to do is I want to wire up a bunch of stuff inside to a button on the front of the amplifier or somewhere in the workshop. And so I turn the amplifier on, full voltage, playing some audio. Then when I hit the button, the way that it's wired is it shorts out things in a very dramatic way, disable all the protection circuits so that you get absolute sparks and flame balls and all sorts. They can go up in a really dramatic way, and it looks amazing when it happens. I want to try and film that with slow motion cameras and stuff. So that is an idea I have. I'll spray some alcohol in there as well to get some flames going. It'll be good fun.
You need a fire extinguisher nearby too, because we don't want to start any fires there.
That'd be awesome.
There's like two fire extinguishers just to my side here. I have all that covered. Don't worry.
Good.
That almost sounds like a Rube Goldberg contraption. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Definitely something that I'll do this year.
Yeah, looking forward to it. So I know a lot of times we talk to people like you who work on amplifiers all day, and you don't have any interest in having any, but do you have any collections? Like, do you have any that you keep around, or do you just kind of fix, repair, and send them out?
That's a pretty good question, actually. Let's see. Because I have so much stuff and I don't have enough space. I generally don't hold on to stuff unless it has significant sort of meaning to me in terms of my past or whatever. Amplifier-wise, I don't feel overly connected to any amplifiers at the moment that I own. I've got a couple of LW audio amplifiers which are in the van I'm currently running on my DDZ4s, which I love because that was the first kind of big importing sort of thing that I did. Me and Lawrence, they've been an absolute they're probably the most reliable amplifier that I am aware of anywhere at the moment. And so I have a real sort of connection with those. But saying that, if I needed something bigger, I would happily sell those. Things that I still have that I'm sentimental with. Actually, I have this on the desk here in front of me. This is probably what kicked it all off for me in terms of car audio. This here, few people remember this brand. It's an American brand, Elemental Designs. This was the first proper, what I would call proper subwoofer that I ever owned. I had home theater woofers before, the sort of 5.25 inch thing that most people would call a tweeter, so I don't really count those sorts of things, but this was the first real sort of car audio oriented beefy kind of subwoofer that I ever owned, and that's what kicked it off for me. Many people know that thing actually died because probably one of the reasons Elemental Designs isn't around anymore. They had a lot of mechanical failure issues, but this is one of the earlier. This was the 7kV.2. Oh no, this was the EU700, and this was a much simpler design with the tinsel leads, and it didn't have any reliability issues. So I actually found one of these on eBay a few years ago, and I just had to have it just as a memorabilia, a little thing. This is kind of where it all started off, and it's where my videos started to gain popularity as well. Was with the Elemental Designs, great excursion videos and great fun, and it sounded great as well. I have a collection. I do have a collection of woofers. I still have many people that were subscribed to me from way back at the start. I had 8-inch woofers that were unbranded things from eBay. They were very, very cheap. I couldn't work out what they were. I did find out they were made by a company called Lin Son, which are actually really, really good kind of home audio hi-fi brand, and they were OEM factory subwoofers for Aston Martin vehicles. They're the ones that go in the parcel shelf as OEM factory. That's probably why they were so good. They were dual voice coil, they were beefy, they sounded great. And I had those for years and years and years and years. And they again gained me probably most of my popularity. That's where it already started. And I still have most of those, but they're kind of blowing up now, but I still kind of have them laying around. But yeah, in terms of amplifiers, not really a lot. If I ever get my hands on one of the JBL/Crown, I think it's the A6000s, I will cherish that thing like a baby and box it up and wrap it up in sheets, because yeah, that's probably one of the amplifiers that I truly have the most respect for. JBL amplifiers, whenever I get them in the workshop for repair, the build quality and board designs are among the best that I've seen, and that thing I just know, I haven't seen it in person, but I just know that will be probably my favorite.
Yeah, I was going to ask, have you seen it in person? Because pictures of that amp really don't do it justice. It's
no, I don't know how many there are in the UK. There's probably like 2 or 3, a very small handful floating around. But yeah, if I do see one pop up, I'll probably buy it regardless of cost, just because I have such a huge respect and connection with JBL and Crown, and I want to keep it in tip-top condition.
Yeah, they're cool, and the way they're designed with the transistors that go around the outside of the transformer.
Awesome.
It's wicked, man.
Yeah, man. And
Oh yeah, and Ethan and Troy done it.
Oh, sorry.
Ethan and Troy done a cool video, a teardown of that particular amp on their YouTube channel. So you should check that out. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, the Amp Lab. If you haven't seen it, they did a complete teardown, and they repowder coated it and everything and put it back together.
Awesome. I haven't seen that. That will be my bedtime viewing for this evening for sure. Yeah.
Cool. So, gosh, there was one thing that we kind of skipped over that I wanted to ask you because it just boggles my mind. Rob and I have been in car audio, or I've been in car audio since like late 1980s. Rob, I think a little early, a little later than that. But I can't believe that they still have it today. That if you hook up the positive and negative reverse, they don't have a protection for that. And you were just saying that earlier, that some of the amps you got in were because people wired them backwards. It's like, really? They haven't created the protection circuitry in all these years that protect amps when they're hooked up backwards?
So they actually
some
do.
Of them. Yeah, some of them do.
But it doesn't always work. So the issue that you have is that for effective protection against wiring it up backwards, you would have to have some kind of something that breaks the connection between one of those terminals when it detects a reverse polarity wire. And as you know, in order to have a device that, like a circuit breaker, that can handle the amount of current that these amplifiers require at 12 volts, you'd either be seeing considerable voltage drop across that breaker itself when it was in normal operation, or the thing would be so huge and expensive, it would just be it wouldn't be viable really to put into the amplifier in the first place. What most of the amplifiers that come out of Korea and SNI in China have is they have a huge set of great big diodes, and they're installed in reverse on the speaker terminal, so that when the amplifier is wired up normally, they block the they don't allow the 12 volts to pass to ground because the diode is that way around. And then when you hook up the power wires in the opposite direction, obviously then the diode is the other way around, and so the 12 volts sees the lowest path of resistance through these diodes to ground. And so what these diodes do is they blow up in a very dramatic way, and they sacrifice themselves for the rest of the components. Most of the time, often we'll say that it saves amplifiers that have built-in fuses. So if you have an amplifier that either has the blade fuses in the side, or it has a fuse that is a sensible rating close to an amplifier itself on a power wire, most of the time those will sacrifice themselves, and at the same time the fuse will blow, and then you know that something's not quite right. But either amplifiers that don't have a massive fuse, or that the fuse is far away or whatever, sometimes those things sacrificing themselves, they'll either die too quickly, or they'll present too high a resistance to your 12 volts, and it will still kill all the power supply FETs. Yeah, it's a nasty thing, but there isn't a simple solution to it. There are solutions to it that, like I say, involve circuit breakers, or just like a ridiculous row of these diodes. If you had loads and loads and loads of them, then it would pretty much 90% of the time save the power supply components. But there's not really an alternative that's viable.
Yeah, I think the older school amps, it made sense because a lot of those had the fuses kind of built on to the side, like the little ATC fuses and stuff. So it's easy for those to just kind of sacrifice a 15-cent fuse.
Yeah, I mean, I've done it before as well. Don't get me wrong. Back in the day, Vibe Monobox 4 hooked up backwards, blew the fuse, and put the new fuse in, and it worked fine after that.
And anybody who's ever seen the amplifiers that have multiple inputs, be careful, because sometimes, you got positive and negative on this side, and then when you hook the other one up, it's flipped. Because Rob and I were testing a Phoenix Gold, one.
Same on this one.
Okay, yeah. So we were going to hook it up, and I'm like, this is a prototype. Is this correct, or is this not? And it turns out it actually was. They were flipped around. So, yeah, obviously, if you open it up and look at it, you could tell.
I've got that on here. So, yeah, we've got the power terminals here. And let's see. So, yeah, on this one, wait for it to focus. You've got 12 volt on the, I think that's on your left-hand side there.
Yes.
And this one, it's the other way around. Yeah. So, yeah, if you're not watching what you're doing, because these two are the same way. So, if you hook that one up first, and then you hook that one up, then the natural thing to do is, it's going to be the same. Nope. It's backwards. Yeah.
And I believe that's exactly how the Phoenix Gold was.
It is. It's exactly, same exact style. Yeah, so just be careful, people.
It makes sense when you look at it makes sense when you look at the circuit why they've done that, but it is very annoying for the user.
Yeah. So there's one question we like to ask everybody, and I don't know how it's going to apply to you because I don't know how the scene was, but before you got into car audio, were you ever into BMX?
No.
No?
Not at all. I'm not sure where. I've a few people asked me that question. I mean, I'd love to be. BMX is awesome. I did actually try it one time, but it was like I was like 19, or it was way after my channel was a thing. I wasn't that great at it, but I'd like to be into it. I used to skateboard a little bit, but yeah, BMXing.
I think it's a generational thing, Rob, because I think Sam is quite a few years our youth. We're quite the old fogies here. But yeah, if you were around in the early to mid 80s, that was like the thing to do. There was no internet. There was no video games except for Nintendo Entertainment System.
Yeah.
So we didn't have anything else to do.
My childhood was mostly spent playing PlayStation 1 and Game Boy, Pokemon, and I didn't have that whole playing out in the street with your mates things. I always lived on a super busy main road, so I didn't really have that. And my time was spent playing football in the garden with my younger brother and playing PlayStation 1 and Game Boy games and Pokemon.
Well, see, that was the good thing about the 80s and 90s. You had very little parental supervision. You pretty much were just left to your own devices to explore and, get in trouble or whatever you happen to come upon.
Yeah, we still survived somehow without bubble wrap all the way around us.
I mean, there was no mobile phones. My father tells a story. Him and his friend rode their bikes all the way from. People won't know the location, but it was probably a good 5-hour bike ride at the age of like 11 or 12 or something on their choppers, whatever they had back in there. And their mobile phones said to their parents, we'll probably be back at about this time, 6 when it gets dark or whatever. But yeah, no phones if they get lost or got attacked. No, it's just love it. It's just, just go ahead and do it. If they come back, they come back. Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
we
just
all-
had to be back by dinner.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. If you needed to call somebody, you had to stop at a payphone.
Yeah.
What's a payphone nowadays? Nobody knows. Well, cool, Sam. So, if people need to get up with you, obviously, if they're in the UK and need an amplifier repair, what's the best way to get up with you? Is it through your Facebook page or YouTube?
Yeah,
you just tell us what's the best way.
Yeah, so you can either send me a message on facebook.com/Barevids, or that's kind of where, if people have seen my channel, that's where they tend to end up. I also have a business page on Facebook for people that are not familiar with my channel, just for other advertisement purposes, and that is facebook.com/NSV audio. But generally, I absolutely hate the Facebook Pages Manager app, and this massive pain in the butt. The messages take ages to come through, and sometimes they don't show up, and I don't get notifications for it. So if you want a quick reply, just go to Facebook and type in Sam Venard. My name is Sam Venard, VENNARD. I'll probably be the only one that comes up, especially if you've got anything to do with car audio. We'll have at least one mutual friend, and I will come up anyway. And yeah, literally send me a message on my Sam Venard Facebook page, and I'll respond pretty much instantly. So yeah, that's what I do.
Cool. Well, yeah, and make sure you guys check out Sam's YouTube channel at youtube.com/Barevids. Hit him up with a subscription and hit that little notification bell so you know when he goes live, and you can watch him go through an amplifier and you will learn. I guarantee you will learn something.
Going around today.
That's right. You're going to teach him up. So very cool of you to join us here. I know it's late for you there, and we appreciate you taking the time out to join us. It's been lots of fun. And so those who are listening to the podcast, make sure you check us out. We try to go live every Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern. This is a Thursday because this is a holiday week, but you can check us out at youtube.com/12vtalk. You can also find us on your podcasting applications such as Apple Podcast or Google Play or Spotify. I'm trying to get on some of the other ones as well. And you can hear the audio version. You can listen to it in your car. Have a good time hearing Big D talk and hearing our awesome guests such as Mr. Sam here. And so yeah, make sure you check him out on youtube.com/Barevids. Check him out on Facebook. If you're in the UK and need an amplifier repair, hit him up. Learn something new. So that'll do it for this week. So those who are watching YouTube live, stick around. We're going to let you guys ask Sam some questions. If you're listening to the audio itself, make sure you check us out on YouTube. Till next time, 12 Volt Talk.
Right here.
All right.
Nice.
Cool, man. So I'm going to scroll through here. Anybody who's asked a question already, go ahead and ask it again so it pops up at the bottom.
From here. I saw people are asking what the woofer behind me is. That's a RE Audio XXX V4, which is coming from a Recone. It's different to the V3. The V3 had a single voice coil, and it had a motor, had basically two magnetic fields that were sort of flipped, and that was the way it created the XBL2. But the V4 woofer has two voice coils which are separated from each other, and they're contra wound, and that's how it creates the XBL2 effect. But the XXX V4, a lot of people mistook it, or still mistake it, for a very loud, awesome SPL woofer just purely for its size. But actually, it is a pretty weak woofer in terms of power handling. It wants a small sealed enclosure or a small ported enclosure tuned very low. It's most efficient playing between 18 and 23 hertz. And you don't want to feed it any more than about 1500 watts. Otherwise, it will smoke up in a few minutes. But an awesome piece of kit nonetheless.
Another pro tip. Don't use as the SPL woofer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's see. 2001 Monolithic says the video on box rise is the best explanation I've seen on YouTube. That was well done. So kudos.
Thank you very much.
Kudos.
Thank you very much, man.
He also says I have to say I've learned as much on Barevids channel as 20 years of trial and error. So that's another great, some great feedback for
Thanks
you.
very much, my man. So Monolithic. Thank you,
Well,
man.
just speaking to today, you explained the Brazilian amps in a way that was easy for me to understand. Versus, I've actually done some research into them and
Mm.
didn't get as much information as I did from the quick 10 minutes you gave on it. So
Cool. That's the idea, man.
yeah,
Let's see what else we got on here.
Yeah, I love the Deadman Switch too. Sam and I talked a little bit about that before we went live streaming, and he said he had a little foot pedal for the remote terminal. I'm like,
Mm.
man, that's what I need because I've got some really high powered marine switches like they're designed to shut batteries off and stuff, and they can handle like 600 amps a piece. So I was going to wire them up to my bench, but I'm thinking the same thing. I'm like, man, if I really need to shut an amp off quick, I just need to be able to get the
Yeah.
remote terminal
Yeah.
out.
The only time that you need to shut the amp off from the power wires itself is if you short out the power supply section. If you short the power supply section out, no matter whether the remote's there or not, you're going to cook up effects because it's just a short across the power terminals. But most of the time, if you're on the bench, especially if you're if you're monitoring it all the time, if you hear a pop or something goes wrong, the power supply won't die instantly. And literally removing the remote, that the foot pedal, it gives you such a quick response. Like your foot can just lift in a tiny fraction of a second, probably like 50 times quicker than moving your hand over to the remote wire and ripping it out. And so it's been a godsend for me on many occasions.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to steal that idea. That's a great one. Let's see here. So somebody asked the sound quality of Brazilian amps compared to D class. So um, it's
Well, it
really
is.
hard. It's really hard
I
to.
just want to say,
Go ahead, Sam.
just people, Brazilian amplifiers are Class D. It's exactly the same. There are other differences, but yeah, go on.
So, and I guess with that statement, what I will say is there's not these days. There are some good full range Class Ds, like you talked about, the JL Audios, the Rockfords, some of the others. But to me, when I've listened to the Brazilians, and I've got some speakers, full range speakers in my lab to use, they really don't sound great full range to my ears. Now I don't have the best ears. I'm an older guy, but I can tell a difference in the quality of the higher frequency sounds of the Brazilian amps. I don't know what the explanation of that is, but
It's simple. It's absolutely a thing. Literally, the way the Class D works is there is a switch frequency, and it creates the sine wave in steps, little sort of steps of DC, just very quickly. And if the steps are too far apart, then you miss high frequency information where the sine wave might go up and then do a little spike there for some high frequency and then continue. If the steps of the way the Class D is generating the sine wave are too large, then it misses that nice little spike out of the signal, and it can create either a muddy sound or it can create a harsh sound where the steps are quite sharp. So it almost sounds like a kind of a harsh kind of raspy kind of sound from there. But generally, those high-powered Brazilian full-range amplifiers are generally going to be used on mid bass or mid range speakers only that require that much power, where the switching frequency doesn't need to be so high to counter for sort of 10 kilohertz plus. Generally, those amplifiers will be used on woofers that are playing up to maybe 8K tops. For tweeters, don't need like thousands of watts, and so Class AB amplifiers can cater for that.
and those who haven't seen the videos of those huge tractor trailers that they have over in Brazil with the I don't even know how many woofers they have on them, but they've got like the
Yeah, no.
12-inch PAs and they've got the compression drivers and like you said, they're really designed for 50 hertz and above is what it looks like. 'Cause that's kind of what the music type they listen to.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah,
that's
those things are designed to play. They'll have one demo track, and the enclosures and everything will be designed around the one frequency of that kick drum. It's almost like a burp box kind of environment where, yeah, it's just designed for a very small range of demo tracks, and it will absolutely hammer whilst playing those. But try and throw anything else through it, and it might sound a bit messy.
Let's see. Somebody wants to know more about the driver boards. You talked about that. There, I guess there's a kind of a generic one that's used in a lot of the Class D
Yeah.
amplifiers.
That's this is the most common driver board in the Class D bass amplifier. Anything above sort of 3.5K or 4K will use this kind of driver board. And it looks pretty complicated, but in reality it's quite simple because it's just split up into sections. So these amplifiers, they actually like the amplifiers that use this driver board are actually four separate amplifiers that are then parallel together on the output. So each chip that you see here, chips are missing on this one, but there's a half bridge drive chip on each of these, and this is driving 1/4 of the total amplifier. So yeah, literally you just split it into columns. So this is one drive circuit, then it's exactly the same mirrored here, exactly the same mirrored here, exactly the same mirrored here. This middle section is just where the audio sine wave gets converted into the PWM to drive Class D. So that's what changes the audio signal into a square wave essentially. And there's some protection circuit up here. And then all this is, it's just 1, 2, 3, 4 mirrored drive circuits for the four parts of the amplifier that are then paralleled.
That's a great explanation. Again, learning on Barevids here on 12 Volt Talk. I love it, man. I could sit there and watch your stuff at repairing amps just all day long. It's just, to me, it's great. I love it. Anybody who's interested in electronics and how amplifiers work and stuff, you just really have that market. It's cool what you're doing. Did you see anything else, Rob? I didn't see any other.
No, I didn't see any other questions. That's what I was looking for.
I know the 1 amp Sam will not fix US amps. There's a few amps that I'll generally turn away because they end up taking up more time than it's worth. If I was to spend ridiculous amounts of time on it. US amps, they did some of their own designs, but the US amps that I've seen so far have been incredibly fussy on the exact characteristics and specifications of the transistors which they used at the time. So when these amplifiers were made, one transistor model had a specific set of characteristics and specifications, and the ones that you can get today, although it's the same model of transistor, will differ slightly in terms of its specification, and the amp doesn't like it. It just fail within a few minutes. And so unfortunately you can't get, I've tried various different types of parts in these, but these board designs were made so tightly around these very fine specifications that you try and throw anything else in there and it's not happy. So yeah, there are some amps that I won't touch for those sorts of reasons, but generally I'll repair anything.
Well, it's good to know. I mean, sometimes I think people hear when you say you don't repair something, they think it's because of laziness or something. But obviously, you've run into situations like that where you've probably devoted a lot more time than you got paid for, and so then
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
right off the bat, it's not worth it. So it's good to just let people know
Absolutely,
it's not worth it when it's not.
Yeah, generally, if an amplifier explodes on my bench more than once, so if I do repair and it fails, I repair it again and it fails a second time, by that point, the component cost and the time that's now a loss for me. But I'll still go on and complete the repair, and I won't charge the customer any extra really than what I would otherwise if it's a fault that I've missed or something. Then yeah, so there have been a few repairs that have ended up a loss for me, but the customer always gets a proper working amplifier like new at the end of it. That's all that's important to me.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you have to use it as a learning experience sometimes, and that way
Absolutely,
next
yeah.
time, hey, this is not one I really want to devote time to.
Yeah, of course.
Well, good deal, man. I think we're about finished here. We'll go ahead and thank everybody who joined us on YouTube for joining us live. And thanks again, Sam, for your time. Make sure
No
everybody
problem at all,
checks him
man.
out at Barevids on Facebook and YouTube. Get him a subscribe and check out some of his videos. He's got a bunch. You've got I'm trying to see how many you've got total.
There's a whole load.
You've
Yeah,
got
I would
several
say
hundred.
yeah, it's got about 500 or 600 now, but I
Five or
would say
six.
the majority of those are probably probably a good 300 or 400 of those are way back, old school kind of bedroom excursion videos that were good fun at the time, but don't really contain any valuable learning or content. I think I would say there's probably about 200 or so videos in more recent times that are worth watching, the more recent stuff.
Cool. Well, we'll link to a few of your favorites. We'll put them in the video description of this video so people can check them out. And then if you can remember one of the ones where the amp blew up, we'll give people a teaser with that one too, so they can check it out.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember which ones those were, and we'll get some cool clips of that happening. Yeah.
All right. Sounds good, man. Rob, do you have any other questions?
No, I think we're good. Unless anybody out there hasn't seen the 4-inch 25 hertz subwoofer, go check that out on Sam's.
Yeah, that's one of his top 5, I think. So yeah, definitely check that out. All right, man. Well, Sam, we'll be in touch, man. Thanks again for joining us here.
It's always been lovely talking. Nice one.
Yeah, good. We'll catch up with you later. Thanks, everybody on YouTube. Have a good night.